So let's review Unit 3, the causes of the Civil War. Now, we said that the Civil War cannot be explained as being caused by something as simple as slavery. That is not a legitimate answer to give. It was a major component of the Civil War, and really even the driving component of the Civil War. But the ideas and the nuances and the complications within that word slavery are so deep and so varied that just giving a one-word answer cannot really do the causes justice. So some of the other things that go into that and some of the reasons that we said led to civil war: manifest destiny, trouble in California, slavery, failed compromises, and the 1860 election. Now, we talked about this Gast painting here. We said that it represented really well manifest destiny, which was the idea that God has given to America the right to expand westward from shore to shore. We said that John O'Sullivan actually coined this term, or is given credit for it, in his writing Annexation in 1845, when he is writing about annexing Texas. So it's time to stop, he says, thwarting our policy and hampering our power, limiting our greatness, and checking the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allowed by Providence. So it's a very common idea at the time that God has shown upon the United States, and therefore we have a right to move westward and take all of our ideas with us. And that's really the core issue, is that we have the idea to take our individuality and our beliefs with us into new territories. Now, getting west, once the trails were rutted in, was a lot easier than before. We talked about some of the main trails, the Oregon, Santa Fe, California Trail, most of them jumping off from Independence, Missouri, which was considered the edge of civilization. Everything beyond was savage native territory. So this is all the imagery that you associate with westward expansion: the Conestoga wagons and the Oregon Trail game, of course, where it seems like at least 1 out of every 3 times you play it, you died of dysentery. So why now, at this particular point in our history, is this idea so strong in the 1840s about manifest destiny? Well, gold is really one of the major features of this. Now, gold was, of course, discovered in California, 1849, which is why the football team there called the 49ers. But it goes back to an earlier Second Great Awakening reform idea that, it is our Christian duty to expand and to make converts of those that we encounter and to improve lives. So gold was just a really good motivator for people to put those earlier beliefs into effect. We talked about there are some interesting people that came out of this whole westward expansion, like Levi Strauss, who was known for his blue jeans, which we talked about, was miner wear, worn over the trousers of miners as they worked. Okay, so before the trails were all good and rutted in, you had to make a voyage that was something like this. You started out on one of the coasts, or somewhere along the East Coast, rather Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico there, and you traveled down around the Horn of South America and up into what was to become California. Now, Manifest Destiny dovetailed really well with the Mexican War here, and they go hand in hand, truthfully. And you can see here by this map from 1830, which is, of course, about 10, 15 years before what we're talking about, that most of the country is wide open. From 1607, when Jamestown was founded in Virginia, up until 1830, Missouri is as far as we got, about the middle of the country. And so we've got unorganized territory. We've got Oregon country, which was contested early on between the United States and Britain, and Russia's going to get involved up there. And then you've got this huge tract of land that belongs to Mexico, really about $18 million worth. And you can see that Texas and Arizona and California are all included in that. Okay, so the Mexican War. Some of the roots of the conflict lie in old religious hatreds. Protestant Texas and Catholic Mexico. Now, Texas was not an independent republic yet. It was not a part of the United States. It was peopled by Americans who had moved into Mexican territory and were allowed to live there. Now, there were restrictions on that. The numbers of people that could come in and a lot of stipulations that went along with that. And Mexico also forbid slavery. And a lot of people that were moving into Texas were doing so because it was cotton country. And they wanted to bring their cotton and their slaves and their beliefs. So, manifest destiny, the idea that you can move west and take your ideas and beliefs with you. So they're wanting to bring in this cotton culture, and Mexico is forbidding it. Okay, so 1844, we've got a guy named James Polk who is going to win the presidential election against the super American himself, Henry Clay. And Polk's going to run on a platform of manifest destiny, which he's going to argue that the U.S. has a God-given right to the West, and he's going to suggest annexing Texas and occupying Oregon. So how does this guy's presidency preface war? We said that his success, as far as the economy went, led to a boom. So lower tariffs and independent treasury is going to cause this boom, and it's going to allow people to pursue their westward migrations. And he's going to gain Oregon territory, and he's going to gain California, which is going to be our next topic here after the Mexican War. So at the Alamo, we talked about the standoff between Santa Anna's armies and the Texans with Stephen Austin and Jim Bowie, Davy Crockett. So all the stuff of legend is going to go here at the Alamo, and it's a good symbol of the attitudes of the Americans in Texas. Just how much they had made it their own country, just how much the Manifest Destiny idea gave somebody a right, at least in their mind, to control territory that did not belong to them, truthfully. So the Mexican-American War, really goes back to the roots of the conflict there that we mentioned, and this idea that, we can take what we want to take. We've lived here for long enough. We've made this a part of our lives. It is in us. Texas is in us. And so we will stay here, by God. And so all these things are going to come together in this massive blowout. And Texas is actually going to win its independence from Mexico. But they're not going to be allowed to enter the Union yet, because it's going to cause an imbalance. And so from the 1820s, with the Missouri Compromise on, America is going to be obsessed with the balance of slave and free states, because each side, pro and anti-slavery, was fearful of the other side having too much power in the government. Now, the Mexican War is going to be ended by the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. And in this treaty, you can see in the red, we're going to gain some states. The United States are going to gain some territories that would become states. And the Gadsden Purchase we talked about was that little strip of land down there that the South and pro-slavery men really wanted to hold on to as part of the bargain, because they wanted to put a railroad through there so that they would have access to the Pacific markets that were going to be opened up. And in the end, it's not going to work out for them, because the railroad's going to go through a northern route, and so it's going to benefit the North, which is going to stir up all those old feelings of distrust between the industrialized North and the agricultural South. So we said that some of that land that Mexico had to give up was worth about $18 million, and that was part of the treaty as well. Now, there was also a suggested ban on slavery in new territories for Mexico, and slaveholders viewed that as an attack, obviously. And it's going to lead to the creation of the Free Soilers. And the Free Soilers did not want states with slaves. They wanted to enter these new states as free states, but they also wanted to alleviate any kind of issues and not have blacks as well. So a lot of the Free Soil movement was anti-slavery and anti-black. Okay, and we can kind of see the purchases here from 1836 to 1853. The Republic of Texas, that part that ended up free during the early days of the Mexican War, prefacing the Mexican War, and it was not entered into the Union until 1845, which is why Texas is called the Lone Star State, because it was an independent republic for quite a while, between 36 and 45, before it was actually entered into the Union. Some of the disputed areas, which a big cause of the Mexican War there, river boundaries marking how far Texas and America could expand versus what percentage of land or amount of land controlled by Mexico. And you can see the Gadsden Purchase and the land that Mexican had to give up as a result of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Now, California, 1848, so we're at the end of the Mexican War here, and we've got President Zachary Taylor in office. Now, he is going to court Free Soilers and Northern Democrats. He's a politician, and so he's going to do what needs to be done in order to get support for what he wants to happen. Now, he is going to advise California to apply for statehood very quickly to avoid any kind of debate between free and slave state supporters, and get California entered in as a free state. But they pick up on that, and it's blocked. So there is an imbalance, and they lock up, just like the government is so prone to do right now. They refuse to give in on either side to any great extent. And so they're just butting heads until Henry Clay and Daniel Webster and Stephen Douglas create something called the Compromise of 1850. And the 1850 Compromise just demonstrates how fractured the country had become over the slavery issue. That slavery, it had always been a contentious issue ever since the American Revolution. But now it is starting to lock up politics. It's starting to keep government from fulfilling its job. And so this compromise shows just how much damage could be done and was about to be done because of the slavery debate. Now, the Compromise of 1850 has 6 main points that I would categorize it into. You've got the Fugitive Slave Act, which is the one that I really want you to remember. You've got California coming in as a free state. You've got New Mexico and Utah coming in as territories, and since they're not states yet, slavery, there's no restriction on that. Texas boundaries are set, so Texas can no longer expand into what is controlled by Mexico, and that's kind of a peacekeeping deal there. And again, no restrictions on slavery. The slave trade is abolished in D.C. A lot of people are surprised to find out that there were slaves in the North. And yes, they were. And some of the northern states actually did not free their slaves until very late in the process. And Mexico had to pay $10 million to the state of Texas in reparation for damages. All right, so the Fugitive Slave Act was just like it sounds. It was an act to capture fugitive slaves. Before, if a slave made it through the Underground Railroad and made it north or into Canada under a free state, good for them. The slaveholder could do nothing to get them back. With this, in an attempt to please the slave state supporters, because remember, California is coming in as a free state, slave owners can now use federal power to return runaways. They don't have a right to trial. It just takes one white accuser. And if accused, even a free black could be enslaved, and it divides the Whig Party.